So what is a session ID, or more specifically, what is a authentication cookie? That's what we'll be talking about in this video. So as you use and browse the internet, it might be good to ask yourself, how does a website remember who you are? For example, if you log into a website, how does the website and the server associated with that website recognize your computer and your session apart from everybody else? In the case of most websites, including the EMR, this is done through a authentication cookie. So I'll show you how that works. So for this Firefox window, what I have up here is this extension called Cookie Editor. What this extension will do is it will show all the available cookies associated with a website. So for example, if I was to go to, let's say, Amazon, and I click up on the icon here, you'll see that it'll have a whole bunch of cookies that are associated with this website. But if I go back to the EMR and click on this, you can see that there are no cookies. What this means is that the server hosting the Hackable EMR currently does not recognize your computer at all. It is a complete stranger, which is why it is asking us to log in. So let me log in, and you can see exactly what happens to the cookies when I log in. So I've logged in here. If I go back to the cookie editor, I now have a cookie called PHP Session ID. And if I click on the down arrow here, we can see the details of the cookie. In this case, you can see the name is PHP Session ID, and it has a random value associated with that cookie. And what this cookie is it is from the server, and it is stored by the server on our computer so that the server can recognize that we are logged in as a certain user and we currently have a running session. So if I was to go like to different pages in the system, it's not going to ask me to log in anymore because I already have a valid session with the server. But now watch what happens if I delete this session cookie. So if I go here, there's a little garbage can here, click on that, and I can see that there's no cookies for this page. Now watch what happens when I try and go to a different page. It kicks me back out. The reason it kicks me back out is because that session cookie that we just had is now gone. And that can happen because of you clearing the cookies. It could be that it expired. Usually some websites will have an expiration on cookies, so they log you out automatically. Either way, what has happened is the session cookie is now either invalid or gone, which means that our new key here, you can see that there's a new key that we have with a new value. This value, though, is not associated in the server with a valid login yet, which is why it's asking us to log in. If we try and click the back button, for example, on the web browser, you can see it just kicks us right back to this login page because the server sees that our session cookie is not valid and will refuse to serve us any web pages until we have a valid session going. Now, this can be used for a very specific type of attack called a session hijack attack. And to perform that, what that essentially means is that if I click on submit here and log in, now the server has validated my login credentials and has authorized my session cookie to be used with the website. So it will, as long as the session cookie is here and valid, these keys, these values are the same, it will see my session as active. But what happens if we take this cookie and move it somewhere else? For example, what if we take this valid session cookie and move it to a different web browser on a different computer? Now, the results from doing this can vary. There are countermeasures in place that can help prevent this kind of attack from happening that are completely absent on the Hackable EMR. So what would happen if you took this session cookie and moved it to a different computer and then tried to access this EMR? What would happen is the server would look to see if that other computer has a valid session cookie, in this case, this one, and see that, oh, this computer also has a valid session cookie, let them log in too. And what can happen then is if you have this cookie and install it on your computer into your web browser, you could steal the session from this first computer here. For example, I'm logged in as admin. If you took the session cookie and moved it to your own computer, you could authenticate your browser as an administrator without logging in. And this is exactly what happens when we use SQL Map. Because SQL Map does not have the ability to log into a web page like this, we have to feed it in a cookie that's already been validated. So in this case, what we're doing is we are logging into the system, the EMR, with our username and password, and then taking the session ID, the session cookie here, the ID, the value from this, and then inserting it into SQL map. So we're taking the session from the web browser and then giving it to SQL map. And the EMR server can't tell the difference. It looks exactly the same to the server. So hopefully this explains a bit about how authentication works in terms of web pages and stuff like that, and how it can be used potentially to create some pretty devastating attacks.